when death comes around, there's a lot more fighting about finances and stuff like that.
We don't want to talk about it until we're closer to death. Yeah, but you could step off a curb and be hit by a bus tomorrow, and you've never had the discussion. I've seen too many times young people that have accidents. They were just riding their bike, and something happened on the road, and they've ended up killed. And you're like, okay, so what do you do then? The caskets have been going up in price just because of the wood. The better wood is going to be more expensive. When I started 6 years ago, a grave liner was maybe $1,200. Today, there is $1,700.
Do your families a favor, guys. Give them the gift that when you finally leave this earth, they can say goodbye without the emotional strain and maybe even resentment. I saw all the things that someone would need to go through to plan a funeral for somebody else, but I was doing it for me. What's the best way to start this conversation with aging parents without upsetting them? Everyone's gonna pass. It's just a matter of when and how.
Planning a funeral is like planning a wedding, but you're planning it in 4 hours instead of weeks and months.
Yeah, and you're planning with emotions that are so heightened, you're not making the right decisions. Welcome everybody to my channel. I have a special guest today. His name is Charles. Now you'll have to kind of correct me with your last name. Is it Charles Burrell or Charles Burrell?
Burrell. And some
Burrell.
people will say Burrell and some other people say Burrell. It's either
Well, I
way.
want to call you by how it's supposed to be. So Charles Burrell. It's really cool how me and Charles met actually with me working in a retirement community where I help serve seniors. He actually introduced himself to me as somebody who might be able to work with me. He is in, I guess, the funeral planning business, which, I mean, doesn't sound too exciting, guys, but let's face it, we all need this service eventually. And today I wanted to talk about what no one tells you about funeral costs. And so I'm so excited to have my friend here, Charles, come on here. And really, Charles, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of introducing yourself and maybe starting with, who you are, exactly kind of what you do. And I'm very curious to find out why you chose this profession.
I started 6 years ago into this profession, and I had been to another interview with someone else, but I had it sitting in my mind. The thing is, a lot of people don't pre-plan. They don't think about funerals or death. And I realized that I had the sales ability as well as the empathy for people that, puts them at ease when they come in to see me, whether or not they're going to pre-plan that day or they're going to think about it. At least they have all the information. It's better to have the information and know what you're getting into before it does happen, because it will happen to a family. And so many times the families come in and go, well, this is the first time we've ever done it. We've never done it before. Well, of course you've never done it before. This might be the first death you've ever had to be around, really. And when my father passed away and I wasn't in the business, I had to go down to Arizona and pick him up and bring him up to Edmonton and then Fort Saskatchewan. And he never wanted to talk about death. He just thought he was going to go on and on and on. And he never wanted to talk about death. So I had no idea what he wanted. So we just did a small funeral and, buried his urn out by my mother's urn. And that was it. Only later to find out that there was other plans that he had, that he talked with somebody else. And but he never talked to me about it, who was looking after everything. So, and I thought that's going to happen to other people. And, and people should be prepared and let their families know what they really want. Too many arguments happen in the arrangements rooms. Well, mom wanted this or dad wanted this, and then you get the squabbling going on back and forth.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't sound like a surprise when it comes around, when death comes around, there's a lot more fighting about finances and stuff like that. I'm curious to find out what surprised you the most when you started working in the industry.
What surprised me the most? Well, that's a very good question. I think what surprised me the most was how people think they are going to live forever. Well, we don't want to talk about it until we're closer to death. Yeah, but you could step off a curb and be hit by a bus tomorrow, and you've never had the discussion. I've seen too many times people have accidents, young people that have accidents. Well, they were just they were just riding their bike, and something happened on the road, and they've ended up killed, and you're like, okay, so how, what do you do then? I mean, now you're in the throes of panic and trying to solve this problem.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to be an empathetic individual to be working in this industry for sure. And it's good to hear that you're still surprised at, some of the things that kind of happen when this sort of thing happens. Let's just get right into it. I mean, why planning ahead matters. Tell me, why do you think, or maybe if you can give some advice, why is funeral planning easier when families do it ahead of time?
Well, when they do it ahead of time, number one is the family knows what you want. There's no second guessing. Well, that's what mom had planned. The other thing is the funeral cost. Today's costs are, can be locked into today's pricing. You can lock it in, and 20 years from now, when that price has jumped up, you're not going to be paying that price. Your family's not going to be paying that price. They're going to be paying, or they're not even going to be paying anything because it's already locked in. Most of the products and goods are already locked in. Those are the services that are guaranteed. Some of the things that they may want as extras they can get, but they're not paying the $5,000, $6,000 or $10,000 that the funeral home's going to want that day, because that's what's going to happen. A lot of people come in and then they say, this is the service we want. Okay, great. This is how much it is. It's 12 grand. Do you have 12 grand? Well, no. And then they start pulling out different MasterCards and Visas and racking those up. And then you got, as you know, the percentage on Visa cards and MasterCards, there's a high percent rate that's going to go onto those cards, and you're going to be paying over time anyways. You're going to be paying over time that funeral, and you're probably going to pay double once you got the MasterCard paid off. And then we have life insurance. Sure, you have life insurance, but when a husband dies and leaves his wife, and he might have been the major breadwinner. Well, how is she going to survive until things get back semi-normal? It's with life insurance you're going to do that with. But if you have to pay for a funeral, well, that take that money away from her or from the family.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. And we can always talk about life insurance, guys. That's what I do for a living. But I mean, besides the financial cost, when you think about what kind of emotional impact have you seen? Does planning in advance actually have on these families compared to just doing it during a crisis?
It's incredible. People that have pre-planned, they come in, they talk with the funeral director, the plan's already there. So they spend maybe with the funeral director half an hour with the funeral director while they're in grief, okay? Now, if they haven't planned, you're going to expect to spend the next 3 to 4 hours with the funeral director planning this. And you're going to be in grief, you're going to be crying, and you're going to be making decisions that aren't the best decisions in the world. If you have it all pre-planned, it's like, okay, this has happened, but it's all done. We just need to finalize a few things. We go home, we grieve. That takes that burden totally off the family.
100%. When you think about, and that sounds like maybe one of the regrets families have when a funeral isn't pre-planned. Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah. And there are certain cultures that will not pre-plan, but
Right, right. Well, I mean, let's talk about kind of that financial cost. What are the real cost ranges for funerals today, if you don't mind me
I
sharing?
don't
Like,
I
I
don't
mean, a
mind.
range.
So of course you have cremation or burial. Cremation tends to be less than burial when you consider all the things that need to go into a burial. Cremation, you're looking at like a basic at about 4 grand, anywhere's up to 10 or 12 grand for a full service. On a burial, you're looking, like a graveside service, which would be kind of the basics, but you're looking just at the funeral part of it, you're looking at around 6 to 8 grand. Plus, then and that might include the casket at that price. But then at the cemetery, you have to buy the plot. You have to have the grave liner in that plot. And if you go for a vault, then that becomes more expensive. And of course, then the headstone on top of that, those expenses are there too. So like at a city plot, you're looking at about, for a single plot, you're looking at 3,300. At some of the private ones, you're looking at a plot at about 5 grand, 6 grand.
And that's
And
on top of like the burial
it's
and on top of the casket and on top of the whatever you need to do with the
with the
body.
funeral. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What usually, like, what surprise costs catch families off guard, I wonder? What are people surprised at the most in terms of cost?
Cost. I found them surprised at the cost of caskets. The caskets have been going up in price just because of the wood. The better wood is going to be more expensive. And with everything that's been going on with shipping and logistics of getting caskets in, prices have been going up with that. I've been surprised at the price of grave liners, actually, is what caught me off guard. When I started 6 years ago, a grave liner was maybe $1,200. It's
Hey,
now
wait, how long ago did you start again?
6 years ago. So
Six.
six
That's
years ago,
yeah.
grave liners were about $1,200. Today, they're $1,700.
That's just in 6 years.
Yeah, and that's because of the price of concrete's gone up.
Right.
And the same with
Right.
vaults. Vaults were, a lower end vault might have been, I got to think now, maybe 2,000, but now they're up to about 4 or 5 grand for a vault start. And then
Wow.
your upper ones are up to the 20, 25 grand.
Holy guys, do you hear that? 25 grand for the higher, like the upper end. And that's okay. So that's just the funeral. Or sorry, that's just the
That's just
burial part.
that's just the liners
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, well, okay, let's talk about the actual celebration of life.
So
Like the reception or whatever comes after and all that stuff. Like that's
and
another cost, is it not?
it's another cost. Also, you see, we have to pick up. So when you call a funeral home, we go pick up the body, we bring it into our care. We do other care and preparation. We look after the body, we clean it up, we disinfect. And depending on what kind of service, then we will either embalm or and dress the person, put them in their casket or into their containers for cremation. And then, then we do the whole funeral service. It could be a full religious service, could be a celebration of life, right? And what's the costs that have been going up there again is the picking up of the body. So, it's doubled since the time I started.
Oh,
And also, when I started, it was like we would travel for 50 kilometers. Now we only travel for 25 kilometers until now you have to pay $2 a kilometer extra once you're outside of that zone.
so let me get this straight then. So you're at, let's say, God forbid, pass away in a hospital.
Yeah,
You're talking about picking up the body from the hospital.
correct. Bringing it into
Well,
our. Mhm.
right. Yeah. And if someone's hired you, and let's say that their hospital is like in, out of town, let's say that they just happen to be out of town in the hospital and they want you to help them kind of do everything because, of course, they're going to be having the funeral in town because that's where they lived. You would charge over and above, the basic kilometers. Like, guys, see, these are things that we don't talk about when we know that, one day we're going to pass. Like, that's just a given. But for some reason, and now I'm standing on my soapbox, for some reason, we think that we're going to live forever. But just think about this. What if you left all of that to the people you love? Like, imagine their emotional strain, not just having to find out your past, but then having to plan all of this stuff for you. And then you, to boot, if you're not even saving money for this kind of stuff, they're paying it out of their pocket. And again, I don't mean to be so, aggressive or emotional, but do your families a favor, guys. Give them the gift that when you finally leave this earth, they can say goodbye without the emotional strain and maybe even resentment, I think, that would bring to a family member to know that you didn't put anything away for your eventual demise, because that happens to everybody. I would like to know how someone, and maybe this is a great segue, how can someone honor their loved one beautifully without overspending?
Without overspending, like if they're pre-planning.
If someone was open to your advice and say,
Yeah.
Charles, tell me how I can take care of my family when I finally leave this earth. What are you going to tell them?
Pre-plan your funeral and, lock in your prices today. I'll do an analogy. If when I was a kid, I was like in my 20s, gas was 30 cents per liter. Okay. If I could have locked in that price at 30 cents a liter and gone to the gas station today and got it for 30 cents a liter, would you not do that?
Totally.
Right? Because now what?
That is such a great analogy because, like, what a business that would have been, eh? If there was some sort of membership you could be a part of, and hey, you pay a membership of this one-time thing,
Yeah.
right? Even if you had payments, right? But then as you see the price of gas is going up, you don't ever have to pay any of that increase. You're always going to stay at 30 cents.
30 cents
Yeah,
per liter.
per liter. Yeah, exactly. Like, you guys know, that the price of stuff goes up. This is no different. This is no different, except you actually have an opportunity to save money today for that eventual day when you have to pay for it. or worse, other people have to pay for it. And I mean, again, at the end of the day, when we think about how we celebrate our life when we're gone from this earth, I would much rather know that if someone's celebrating my life, that they know, and this is me, Irene was responsible. She paid for her own funeral because, she's smart. She knew it was going to happen. And I mean, I'm going to share my experience with you, Charles, because I think it would be very valuable to people. So I prepaid for my funeral. And you guys are probably thinking, what? I'm almost 51. And I feel like I already kind of know what I want to be remembered for. I don't have children, so I could easily not care. I could easily not care and say, whoever, I don't know, bury me in the yard, right? I could easily not care. But the thing is somebody's going to pay for it. Or I'm going to be not remembered because no one's going to pay for it, right? And at the end of the day, it's still my responsibility. So I prepaid my funeral with Charles. And the whole exercise as we went through what we were going through, Charles, was very eye-opening because I saw all the things that someone would need to go through to plan a funeral for somebody else. But I was doing it for me. And I was choosing the things that I would want for me. And you finished saying things like, we were just talking earlier where, there would be arguments about what mom would want. And then maybe sister number 2 said, no, mom didn't tell me that. She wants this, right? We all have our own opinions about what other people would want. Like, I like the idea that I get to choose my own funeral. And when I finally leave this earth, people will know that Irene did it her way. And I just open up my eyes to things that I'll give you a really good example. Sorry if I offend anyone, and if my parents are watching this and they don't like this, but this is me. I want to be cremated. I wanted to be cremated. I didn't care for a headstone that people can visit. I want to be cremated. I wanted my remains to be kind of like sprinkled in places that meant something to me. And I hope that whoever has the ability to do this when I'm gone is still able to do that. I also didn't care which container my remains would be in. Like, those are the things that people have to decide for you. What's another thing? The celebration, the reception. I feel that by the time I pass, for me, that if somebody and I feel like I'm gonna live till 100. I just feel like I'm gonna live a long time. I'm gonna just knock on wood. I feel
Knock
like
on
I'm
wood.
gonna, yeah, knock on wood. I'm gonna live. I feel like I'm gonna live a long time, and part of me feels like I don't even know who's gonna survive me at that time. So that whole thing doesn't necessarily matter to me, but for others who have families, who have kids, who have grandkids, I totally see why that would matter, right? But see, this is the thing. If I left all of those decisions, let's say to my sister, because she would probably be the one that decides this for me, she'd probably be wanting to honor me and get me the best of the best and pay for the best of the best. And at that time, it's going to be so much more expensive than it is today. And all for nothing, because I'm telling you, I don't need all that stuff. So this was such an eye opener for me. And forget me, if you have a parent that's, older, and you know that eventually one day it's going to happen for them sooner than you, right? You're going to want to have these conversations with your parent, because if they haven't thought about it, guess who's going to be doing it? You, right? Wouldn't it be nice to just kind of know, hey, mom, dad, let's lock this in, right? You're not jinxing anything. You're planning for what's going to happen anyways, except you're smart about it because you're actually getting what mom or dad really wants. You're finding out if mom or dad can help you pay maybe for this now, right? Or if you actually have to do it yourself, right? But isn't it nice to kind of just get that part out of the way because we know it's going to happen? One of the biggest things that I loved about talking with Charles is he made it so easy. Of course he made it easy. I didn't die yet. No one died yet. It was just easy. But I mean, of course, Charles is very empathetic and patient, understanding, right? So talking to somebody like him who obviously, had a sales background, but still, like you said, to your point, you had empathy. You have to be good at this business in some form or fashion that's not necessarily sales. But what happens when you're planning a funeral and you have to plan it now, right? Like, you're not thinking straight about what you're buying.
No.
You're not thinking straight. You're thinking that you need to honor the person who's passed with the best of the best. And you could have a nasty salesperson who might not even care, right? So and again, I'm not trying to paint the picture, but it just so happens that Charles is really easy to get along with. And he's there for the beginning parts of it. I mean, I know you don't necessarily deal with this part, Charles, where they're planning it when someone passes. You kind of take care of the planning part. If you had some advice to give to my viewers. My question for you is, what's the best way to start this conversation with aging parents without upsetting them?
Well, I do offer, we offer, Dignity Memorial offers a pre-planning book, and it puts everything down, all the information, so that you're not trying to find that information. And it might be the way to start the conversation. Just say, hey, mom, dad, I got you this book. How about we go through it together? Talk about this, kind of what are your plans? I know you're not dying today, but, we'd like to know before it happens, that this is going to, what do you want? I know it's a tough conversation to have, but it's, you have to sit down and at some point talk to your parents or your wife or your husband and just say, we should think about this. And I think, if I'm not wrong, we put yours over, what was it? Was it a few years we put yours over, correct?
Yeah, what I liked is that I was able to give you kind of like an idea of my budget,
Yeah.
and I mean it was something I could afford, and you were flexible enough to kind of work that through. And I mean I do still have the flexibility to pay it off whenever I want as well. I mean I'm in the business of providing insurance, like life
Mhm.
insurance, disability insurance to people. And I can really resonate with you there. People don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about life insurance because they think that, well, if I talk about life insurance, I'm going to die tomorrow. Like it's just this weird thing. And I'm sure they think the same thing about planning their funeral, right? They just all of a sudden think it's going to happen now because I'm talking about it.
Now I've jinxed myself. I'm bound for the grave. It's also kind of the reaction I get when I meet, somebody, a stranger on the street, and they say, "Well, what do you do?" Well, I work at a funeral home, and all of a sudden they're kind of backing away from you, and you get that weird look in their eyes, and
Oh my
I go,
God.
"What? You think you're going to die just by shaking my hand? You're not going to. I've been around a lot of people. Don't worry, they haven't all just And one of my first sort of pre-needs, and this was a gentleman who was a lawyer, and he was doing a maid service. Now I'll explain what a maid service is. Maid it's an assisted dying here in Canada, which we have people who are who are cancer ridden. They know they're dying, and they just feel it's sort of time. And so he knew the date in which he was going to pass, and came into me to do his final arrangements. And he was, we went through everything, and he was very concerned about his partner, like what she was going to experience at that time, what kind of heartache, how to make it easier for her to deal with his past. Because it's for him, he's gone. He's not going to be there. But he realized that the pain and suffering on his partner was going to be huge. So to relieve some of that pain, he set it all up.
Well, I mean, you're saying goodbye to somebody, right? And I mean, someone's always going to feel very sad about when someone leaves. Like, and I mean, that's just it. If you could possibly make it a lot easier for the people you leave behind, because they're the ones that are taking care of everything for you, then why wouldn't you do that? Not to mention, it's good for you too, because you're saving on the money, because we know that the cost of funerals are going up, and you know that, right? I mean, everyone's going to pass. It's just a matter of when and how. That's really the question. That's the question.
That is the question: when and how, and
Yeah.
the questions that your family, if you don't pre-plan, your family's left with two questions they may never be able to answer, and those are: did I do the right thing, and was it what they want? Those are the two
Yeah.
that may never be answered. We can answer a lot of questions, but those two may never be answered.
And what a great opportunity to actually get it straight from their mouth, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You know,
And that doesn't happen without planning.
No, you have to have some planning involved in there. We plan for weddings. We plan for holidays. You don't go forward unless you do any of this kind of planning. And it's been compared. Planning a funeral is like planning a wedding, but you're planning it in 4 hours instead of weeks and months.
Yeah. And you're planning with emotions that are so heightened, you're not making the right decisions.
And this stresses everybody out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I'll close on this. Planning for the inevitable isn't about death, guys. It's about making life easier for the people you love the most. So,
Mm.
thank you so much for being my guest, Charles. I
Well, you're very,
appreciate
very
your
welcome. I
friendship.
enjoyed this so much.
Yes, awesome. And I'm sure that a lot of my watchers and my clients will find value. And yeah, guys, check out Charles Burrell here in Edmonton if you're in Edmonton. And we'll go from there. Have a great day, guys.
Bye for now.